Hey folks, my name's Gary Daly and I am America's Deck Builder. Hey, we're here in Simpsonville, South Carolina at a real live lumber yard, and today we're going to be talking about I.Dekk, which is a residential application composite decking product with several benefits over other products. One of the benefits is that it doesn't have a capstock. And so without the cap, we can achieve a really nice slip resistance with this deep green. Another of the benefits is its composition. The product itself is made up of high-density polyethylene, rice hulls, and I.Dekk, which is a mineral reclaim from the paper industry. Because it doesn't have any wood, it won't absorb water. It also won't allow mold or mildew growth within the product, like many uncapped wood plastic composites will. The product is available in 4 colors: cedar, mahogany, driftwood, and walnut. Another of the benefits of the I.Dekk decking product is its fade resistance. You can see these two boards. This one's been laying out in the parking lot here for 4 years, and this is hot off the line. You can see how little is faded. The way we achieve this fade resistance is partly through the profile. It's a hollow profile, so we can concentrate more colorant in the product itself, and it doesn't have any wood to fade like a traditional wood plastic composite or WPC. The reason we call this product I.Dekk is because of its I-beam profile. Check it out. You can see the I-beams here. The I-beam profile gives us the strength to span 21 inches, which allows us to turn this product at 45 degrees on a 16-inch on-center deck. Another benefit of the I-beam profile is actually twofold. If you take a look at this, you can see it's hollow, which makes it a really light board, but it's got the strength of that profile, so it's very rigid. That allows me to pick up this 16-foot board and carry it without the ends touching the ground, and it'll allow my guys to carry multiple boards at a time. The I.Dekk decking product is available in 4 distinct profiles: tongue and groove, which is certainly our most popular product, the S4S, which we use for stairs, and these 2 accessory products. We have the feature strip for when we have a long deck and we need to piece it together, and the perimeter strip, which we use for picture framing the deck. We'll talk about these 2 guys later. Okay, in this segment we're going to talk about installation of the I.Dekk decking product. The first thing we're going to talk about are the screws that we're going to use. You can use a number 7 or a number 8 trim head screw. We want to be careful that we get the right screw. Many of the composite decking screws out there have a reverse thread on the top 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch. What that's going to do to this product is it's going to, as that reverse thread goes in, it's going to create a hole that's too big for this trim head to really get a good hold of. So we want to make sure that we get a trim head screw with a clear shaft on top. We don't want that clean out thread. Now, in the installation, we're going to install this screw in one of 2 ways. We're either going to screw straight down through the board. When we do that, we want to make sure we aren't going to hit one of these I-beam membranes. If we were to try and screw down in there, odds are the screw's going to come flying off to that side or that side, and you're going to end up with a crooked head and not a very good fasten. So we want to make sure we come down through one of the spaces, through one of the voids. The other way that we'll screw the decking down is in the tongue. We want to come in at a 55-degree angle. If we come in at a 45 or lower, we're not going to get a good fasten, and the screw may hit the bottom and slide across. So it's just not going to get the penetration and the grab that we need. So we want to come in beyond a 45, up at about a 55, and that's going to give us a nice, good, solid grab, and it's going to tug it in against the previous board. Now that we're comfortable with the screws that we're using, we're going to talk about installation, actual installation of the decking product. So the first thing we want to do is snap a chalk line, get a nice straight edge, fasten this board down with straight screws through the first membrane, with our angled screws down through the tongue, and then we're going to bring the next board in, set it into place, and we're going to introduce our gapping tool. This is available from I.Dekk in a 4-foot and soon to be a 6-inch length. We're going to use a 4-footer because it's all we have on site. So we're going to set that on our fastened board, bring the next board in, and fasten it 55-degree angles down through the tongue. With that fastened, lift the deck board off, the gapping tool off, set it in place, bring our next board, and work all the way across the deck. Now the reasons for this gapping are several. First of all, pressure-treated lumber is loaded. When you put a deck together, it moves with expansion, contraction, variations in temperature. The deck is going to move. And so the decking needs to move as well, otherwise it may buckle or distort over time. Also, the decking will expand and contract with variations in temperature. Anything that is subject to exterior conditions is going to need to move. And so we've introduced this little gap here so the boards can move. And right now I want to talk just a bit about structure. This structure that you're looking at is a display in the lumberyard, and it used to have pressure-treated lumber decking runs perpendicular to the joists. So we've taken that decking off, and this structure is fine. For your purposes, you can either build a new structure, or if you have a sound structure, take the old decking off and reuse it. Just make sure that it's sound and then it meets current building codes. One of the really nice things about I.Dekk is that we can span 21 inches with it. And so with that, if our joists are at 16 inches on center, we can install our decking at a 45-degree angle on that structure, unlike other composite products where you have to bring your joists into 12 inches to achieve that 45-degree angle. All right, now we've got our structure. It's complete, it's sound, and it's code compliant. So we're ready to put some decking down. The first thing we want to do is create a starter board. And in order to do that, we're going to take a tongue and groove piece and we're going to rip these two legs off this side using the table saw. Once we've ripped it off, you're probably going to end up with some saw marks here that you can sand off. You can round over that edge a little bit, make it real pretty, because that's what's going to be exposed on the front edge of your deck. So let's go ahead and rip this. Get our safety glasses on. All right, so I've got a handful of the right screws. I've prepped my starter board by ripping the legs off. I've polished the edge and I rounded it over with a router. Now I'm ready to put it down. So on the structure, I need to figure out how far back I want this deck board to be. I'm going to be using a 7/16 inch I.Dekk fascia board on the outside of my rim joist. And I want a 1 inch overhang beyond that. So I've got 1 7/16. My deck board, once ripped, is 5.5. So 5.5 minus 1 7/16 leaves me 4 1/16. So I'm going to measure back 4 1/16 at this end, put a mark, 4 1/16 at that end of the deck, put a mark, snap a chalk line, and that's going to be the front edge of my deck. I want to make sure that I fasten that down really nice and straight, because that's going to dictate how the rest of the deck boards lay out, and I don't want any variations therein. So we're ready to roll. Okay, so I've got my chalk line, so I know where my board needs to be. I've oriented it so it's pretty straight right now. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to drive screws like this right down the center of the board, and they should drop right into my rim joist. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to drive my angled screws in. Follow along. Now, when you drive the straight screws in, you can push the waist in, push it down, and you almost don't see them. All right, we've got our starter board installed, and we're ready to roll with the subsequent boards. Now remember, the only screws that we needed to drive straight in were in our starter board. From here on out, we're going to go every screw at a 55-degree angle. So, pull our next board in, and we're going to use our handy-dandy gapping tool, which, as you'll remember, has a 1/20th of an inch gap here. We're going to drop it in, and we're going to keep it in front of every point that we're screwing. So remember, I don't want to overdrive that because it's going to lose the fasten. It's going to lose the grip. Keep sliding the gap board down, and you can see this nice little gap that it's creating here. Okay, we've run our decking over as far as we can before we hit this rail post, so now we've got to cut around the rail post. It's a pretty simple process. So what we're going to do is, we're going to pull our two deck boards over into place, bring them up against the 4x4. We're going to mark each side, and then we're going to measure back 3/16. We need to introduce a 3/16 inch gap to allow for expansion and contraction. Another thing that we need to make sure of is that we cut around the post, that we leave a tab on this side so that so it's a continuous edge across the front. Now, since I'm going to come in later with a straight edge, and we'll cover this later, and cut this all, I'm going to leave extra on the outside. So basically all I want to do is get a mark on the outsides. From that, I can measure out, and if I have to measure back 6 inches to achieve my 1 inch overhang, I'm going to measure back 7 to leave 7 inches over, or to leave a 2-inch overhang, so then I can cut it in a nice straight line. All right, so I've marked out, you can see these are the cutouts, and this is going to wrap around the post nice. It's going to leave me 3.5 inches outside, which is 1.5 inch for the rim joist, 1 inch overhang, and 1 inch that I can play with to cut off. Let's go ahead and cut it. Okay, I've cut the notches out. I've made them 3/16 bigger in each direction than the post. So now I'm going to pull them over and drop them in, screw them down. That's as close to the end as I want to get with any screw. We want to try and stay 3/4 back with our screws. You can see that I've left about 2.25 inches, 2.5 overhang here. That's going to allow me my 7/16 trim board and my 1 inch overhang beyond that. And I'm still going to have plenty of room to make a nice straight cut down the end. Once we run our decking all the way across the deck, eventually we're going to end up at the house or near the house. And our last piece, inevitably, is going to be a ripped piece. So we're going to have to find the measurement between the last deck board and the house and rip our last board. So our last board, we're going to rip lengthwise, and then we're going to face screw it down. So we're going to face screw the first board and the last board. If we end up with a bit of an open cell, that's fine. Nobody's ever going to put their full weight right up against the house. So we're really not worried about that little bit of deflection. All right, every once in a while you get a yo-ho on the job who drops a tool on the deck and you end up with scratches, a little ding. Well, the nice thing about I.Dekk is you can fix it. Get yourself a stainless steel wire brush. See the scratches? Somebody dragged something across here. I'm going to brush it out. Okay, so we've got our decking run all the way over to the house. We've face screwed our last board and we're ready to cut our perimeter. So what we want to do is we've got to do a little math here, because remember, we've got a 7/16 inch trim board, a fascia board, going down here under the decking, and I want a 1 inch overhang beyond that. I've already done my math. I've measured out and then back, leaving 1 7/16 here. So I've made a mark at this end of the deck and a mark at the other end of the deck. I'm going to ask my trusty assistant, David, to hold one end of the chalk line while I grab the other. We're going to go across these marks and snap a line. Good. Come back. And now I'm going to take my circular saw and run right up that line. With our perimeter cut, with the 1 7/16 overhang, I'm now going to go ahead and install these end caps. It's pretty important to look and see where the word up is and the arrow, because you want it to be installed in that direction so that any moisture that gets in here can weep out through the recessed water releases. So we're just going to stick it in here, and once it's in, we could put a little Lexel in here to hold it, or we can come up from the bottom with a stainless brad just to hold it in place. And that's going to finish the end of your deck. Another option would be, if you don't want to see these caps at the end, we could toss them aside. What we would do is we'd rip this line back 1 7/16 so that it's flush with the end of our deck, and then we would just bring our trim board up to finish the end here. So in other words, trim board decking rather than in this fashion. Thanks for watching this installation video that shows the most basic installation techniques of the I.Dekk system. Watch for more advanced installation techniques in upcoming videos, and have a great day. For I.Dekk, my name is Gary Daly, and I am America's Deck Builder.